You happy now? I didn't do the kissing in the last video. I reintroduced it, okay? I made up for lost time. I watched the Love is Blind reunion, so you don't have to. Just kidding. You actually should watch the reunion. I think it's pretty good. First of all, the set. Whew, big budget. Okay. Was it necessary? No, but you know what? It's good to shake things up a little bit. I appreciated it. Add a little bit of visual interest. They didn't have any past Love is Blind people out there, which I get. People are like, we don't want or care about the past seasons at the reunion, which I totally get. The only reason I wanted there to be past Love is Blind people is because I wanted to be invited out to watch it live. So, you know, selfishly I wanted that, but I get why they didn't have that. Though, were they Chris Paul? I mean, honestly, that was actually kind of amazing. All right, I'm going to get to that. But first off, the live music. They did this last season. Netflix, I'm sorry, we don't care. If I want to go to a concert, I'll go to a concert or I'll turn on my Spotify. I don't need a live performance from a band. I genuinely could care less. It needs to start, bang, get right into it. Megan Jordan. Okay, I had seen on some social media gossip blogs that Meg had a kid, and that was confirmed. Wow, that's crazy. She went to work. Sounds like might have been an accident. I mean, that's probably obvious if it was 3 months into dating. The guy that she's dating, bald, but a good looking bald guy. He rocks it well. He's got that Mr. Clean vibe. Jordan is just hilarious. He was making like faces the whole time. I just love when they would ask him like what he thought about something. He would just be like, I have ADHD. Such a good bit. That's hilarious. Next, we got Joe and Madison. Joe is one of those guys that you don't know why, but you just like can't really be mad at him. It's just because he himself doesn't really take stuff too seriously. I don't know what it is. He's just got that vibe. But I don't know, that was just hilarious. Joe's hysterical. He's kind of messy, but he kind of knows he's messy, you know? Anton and Ally. Here's where it starts to get interesting. I gotta be honest, I didn't like Anton as much during the season, and I felt I liked him more in the reunion. I felt he was real, and there were some really good points made up. And I gotta say, I don't know if I was as impressed with Ally. I didn't feel she was very genuine. I was really surprised that she didn't bring up the strip club thing to Anton. To me, that's almost a sign of her never really being serious. Because if you're really serious with somebody, you're going to bring that up. But if you're not serious with the person, how are you not going to bring that up? Also, I appreciated, by the way, that Netflix didn't like go further into like the alcohol thing with Anton, because I feel like that was very overblown, and that I think that's just like kind of a really low blow to insinuate that about somebody. Also, two other things with Allie that kind of annoyed me. First of all, she should have just owned that, money is something that's important to her. She like said it and then she backpedaled that like in Brazilians, like they expect the man to provide. It's like that's true, but also don't like fully lean on your culture. Just own that's what you want as well as a woman. And the last thing is, look, I totally get that you're like, I want to keep my relationship status private at the time. But guess what? We don't care. Tell us. You're at the reunion. No, you don't get that right. I'm sorry, Allie. You don't get to be like, I'm gonna keep it private. Nope. Sorry. Rejected. I'm annoyed. But hey, you still seem like a wonderful person. Nick also seemed to me to have a bit of a redemption arc. I gotta admit, he was really not that likable in the pods and even through a lot of the season. And, he owned a lot of his stuff. He apologized. And look, a lot of his apologies were clearly rehearsed, scripted. I'm sure he practiced them in front of the mirror many times. But I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I mean, if he really wanted to apologize, then I can understand that he would want that apology to come correct. Now, Annie and Kate did bring up some good points that it didn't sound like he really made a big effort to apologize to them off camera and maybe saved a little bit of performance for on camera. And that is a bit of a ding. So when I apologized to Hannah, I've talked about this on podcasts. I had called her like a week or so before the reunion, or maybe it was even a couple days before. I don't remember. I was really back and forth about it. I'd called Garrett and I was like crying because I was so guilty and felt so horrible. I called Hannah. I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, oh my God, please forgive me. And she did very graciously. And so when I apologized to her on camera, I like obviously said and meant everything that I said, but the real apology, the one where I was like really shaken to my core, that happened before the reunion. And I don't think Nick did that. That doesn't necessarily mean that he should have or shouldn't have. It was, everybody has their own journey, but nonetheless, I think that he did well. Kate, it was a little bit weird that she was there, and I would have wanted Anna there instead. I have a feeling Netflix asked Anna and she chose not to go, just because they definitely would have wanted her. But Kate also was friends with like Joe's current girl, so I can understand also why she was there. Um, you know, it was interesting. She had a little moment. Seems like there's still some raw feelings. Okay, Casey and Patrick. That was hard to watch. That was so awkward. I don't know what it was. It was just awkward. Like, both of them were weird. First of all, it's weird to want the ring back. I don't care what anybody says. Netflix bought the ring. I never cared for my ring back from Britney when we didn't work out. Like, Netflix bought the ring. That's like a ridiculous thing to want. What is Patrick gonna do with the ring? Keep it in a dresser? Like sell it? Like it's a symbol of your like failed engagement. Like, why would you even want that energy? I just think that's ridiculous. Then they also had the basketball thing, which was hysterical, and Patrick lost. That's gotta suck, dude. As a dude, that's gotta suck to choke in that moment. But hey, it happens to the best of us. And in front of Chris Paul. Damn, that sucks. And it's funny, he still didn't want to give the ring back. He was like, I'll give it to you in Denver. And they're like, nah, dude. That was funny. That was really funny. Casey, she couldn't tell the truth. She still couldn't own it. She had her moment. Patrick really tried to help her out. I mean, Patrick was like, in one sense, it was like, he was like, apologize to me. And at first I was like, why are you demanding she apologize to you? But then I was like, what Patrick's doing is actually like kind of giving her an out. I think he could have said it a little better, like, hey, I would really appreciate an apology, or nah, actually, the more I think about it, I think he kind of went about it right. Casey, like, she apologized, but she didn't really. She was like, I'm sorry. It's like, nah, you're not sorry. She felt she was in the right. She couldn't own it. It's okay. She didn't look great, but I do understand both sides. And I've defended Casey in other videos. And also, I think her getting with Joe is unrelated to Joe and Madison not working out. Everybody's been through this experience, people on the back end, it's just, people are hooking up, whatever. No big deal. Okay, Edmund and KB. This is like, it's such a complicated one, because, like, Edmund is, I love the guy, but he's a weird dude. And I think KB had a lot of trouble with him, and I also think Edmund had a lot of trouble with her because, he felt like she maybe wasn't nice to him or whatever. I think that was just a relationship that was doomed from the very start. I'm glad that Netflix kept it classy and let them, encourage them to have a little makeup in the end. Ultimately, the reunion was fine. It's interesting. It's the first season that no one's gotten married. So there was like kind of just a bunch of people there. So it did lack a little bit of that sticking power because there wasn't as much of a dichotomy between the married and the unmarried. And lastly, I gotta say, I thought Nick and Vanessa were a little nicer than they usually were. And I honestly don't like that. Like, they weren't nice to us. Like, be mean. Get in there. Like, dig. That's why we're watching it. Especially if we're not gonna see married couples. Like, get the tea out. Vanessa's a shark. She's like, I know her teeth are sharper than that. So, they played softball a little bit with them, Kids these days. Kids these days just don't have it like we did back in the day. Anyways, that's all. Mwah. If you listen to this ramble, you're a real trooper, and have a wonderful day.